The moment my mother screamed, "Get back in that kitchen," across a house full of Christmas guests, something inside me finally broke. I quietly untied my apron, placed it on the counter, picked up my suitcase, and walked out the front door. 3 hours later, my parents were standing in front of an empty kitchen on Christmas Eve, and for the first time in their lives, they had no one left to order around. My name is Hannah, and growing up, I wasn't treated like a daughter. I was treated like unpaid help. People thought my parents were wonderful. Dad was respected at church. Mom organized charity drives. Everyone called them generous. Nobody saw what happened after the front door closed. At home, I woke up before everyone else. I made breakfast. Packed lunches. Cleaned bathrooms. Did laundry. Cooked dinner. Washed dishes. By the time I finished, everyone else was relaxing on the couch watching television. Whenever I asked my younger brothers to help, my mother always answered for them. "They're boys." As if that explained everything. When I turned 16, my friends started getting part-time jobs. I wanted one too. Dad laughed. "You already have a job." He pointed toward the sink full of dishes. "Right here." They called it teaching responsibility. It felt more like ownership. Even after I left for college, nothing changed. Every holiday visit became unpaid labor. Thanksgiving? I cooked. Easter? I cleaned. Birthdays? I baked every cake. Christmas? I practically ran the entire house. The worst part wasn't the work. It was that nobody ever noticed it. Dinner simply appeared. Laundry magically folded itself. Bathrooms somehow became clean. I was invisible until something wasn't done. Then suddenly everyone knew my name. One December, I decided I wouldn't come home for Christmas. I had finally rented my own apartment. I wanted one peaceful holiday. The moment my mother heard, she cried. "So you don't care about family anymore?" Dad called next. "Christmas isn't Christmas without you." For one brief moment, I actually felt appreciated. Then Mom accidentally sent me a grocery list. Not by mistake. To me. 43 different ingredients. Enough food to serve 22 people. At the bottom she wrote, "Don't forget to arrive 2 days early so you can prep everything." Not so we can spend time together. So I could prep everything. I realized they didn't miss me. They missed my work. Still. I went. Part of me kept hoping maybe this year would be different. It wasn't. The second I arrived, Mom handed me an apron. Turkey still frozen. No hello. No hug. Just instructions. Over the next 48 hours, I barely sat down. Everyone else watched Christmas movies. Played board games. Wrapped presents. Laughed together. I chopped vegetables until midnight. Baked pies. Prepared side dishes. Decorated tables. Even ironed napkins. On Christmas Eve, relatives started arriving. Every single person complimented my mother. "This food looks amazing." She smiled proudly. "Thank you." She never once mentioned I'd prepared nearly all of it. Not once. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of my cousins walked into the kitchen. "Hannah, come take a family picture." I smiled. Finally. Before I could leave, Mom shouted across the room. "No." Everyone turned. "We still need the gravy finished." My cousin looked confused. "But the photographer's waiting." Mom shrugged. "The food comes first." Then she looked directly at me. "Get back in that kitchen." The room became silent. I looked around. 23 people. Not one offered to help. Not one. I quietly stirred the gravy. Finished the potatoes. Covered every dish. Then I walked upstairs. packed my suitcase. Came back down. Untied my apron. Placed it neatly on the counter. Mom frowned. "What are you doing?" I smiled calmly. "Going home." She laughed. "Stop being dramatic." "I'm serious." Dad stood up. "Dinner isn't ready." "I know." "You can't leave now." I looked at him. "Actually, I can." Then I picked up 2 large insulated containers. The ones holding every prepared dish I'd personally paid for. Because that was another secret. I'd bought almost all the groceries myself after Mom claimed money was tight. I had every receipt. Without another word, I carried the containers to my car. Nobody stopped me. They were too shocked. Then came twist number 1. Halfway home, my phone exploded. 32 missed calls. Texts. Voicemails. Not one asked if I was okay. Every message was about dinner. "Where's the stuffing?" "You took the desserts?" "People are waiting." Mom finally left one voicemail. "How could you embarrass us like this?" Embarrass them. Not hurt them. Not disappoint them. Embarrass them. That told me everything. Later that night, one of my cousins secretly called. "Hannah." "Yeah? What happened after you left?" I couldn't help asking. "What?" He laughed awkwardly. Nobody knew how to finish anything. Apparently the turkey wasn't fully cooked. The rolls never went into the oven. The gravy recipe existed only in my notebook. Half the ingredients disappeared because I'd purchased them myself. Within an hour, guests quietly started leaving. Several stopped for fast food on the way home. Christmas Eve dinner completely collapsed. For the first time ever, my parents had to face something they'd ignored for years. They had no idea how much work I actually did. Then came twist number 2. The next morning, my grandmother called. I expected criticism. Instead, she sighed deeply. "I've waited 20 years for you to do that." I froze. "What?" "I saw everything." Her voice cracked. "I just didn't know how to stop it." Tears filled my eyes. She continued. "When your mother was your age." Another pause. "She was treated exactly the same by her own parents." I couldn't believe it. The cycle hadn't started with me. It had started decades earlier. Grandma kept talking. She promised herself she'd never repeat it. But she did. Sometimes people become exactly what once hurt them. Not because they're evil. Because pain left unhealed often becomes someone else's burden. 3 days later, my parents arrived unexpectedly at my apartment. Mom looked exhausted. Dad seemed unusually quiet. Neither of them came inside immediately. Finally, Dad spoke. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms. "I'm listening." Mom started crying almost instantly. I didn't realize. For years I'd dreamed about hearing those words. Now they felt strangely empty. Dad quietly handed me an envelope. Inside were copies of every grocery receipt I'd paid over the last 5 Christmases. Reimbursed. Every single dollar. Then another envelope. A handwritten letter. Not typed. Not printed. Written by both of them. Page after page acknowledging moments I'd almost forgotten. The birthdays I cooked instead of celebrating. The vacations where I cleaned while everyone relaxed. The holidays where I never sat at the table until everyone else finished eating. They remembered everything. That somehow hurt even more. Because it meant they had noticed. They just hadn't changed. The climax came the following Christmas. My parents invited everyone again. This time they asked one question before anyone arrived. "Hannah." Dad looked nervous. "Will you come?" "I don't know." Mom nodded. "If you come." She smiled weakly. "You're not allowed in the kitchen." I laughed. "What? Dinner's already prepared." When I arrived that evening, something felt different. Dad was setting the table. My brothers were washing dishes. Mom was carrying food from the oven. Nobody handed me an apron. Nobody gave me instructions. Instead, Dad pulled out a chair. "Sit." For the first time in my life, I actually sat down before dinner. Halfway through the meal, my youngest brother stood up. "I want to thank Hannah." Everyone looked toward him. He smiled. "I never realized how much you did for us." The room became quiet. Then one by one, others thanked me too. No grand speeches. Just honest words. The kind I'd wanted to hear my entire life. Today, Christmas feels completely different. Not because my family became perfect. Because everyone finally learned that love isn't measured by how much one person sacrifices. It's measured by how willingly everyone shares the burden. People sometimes ask if leaving my parents with an empty kitchen was revenge. It wasn't. It was a boundary. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do isn't continuing to save people from the consequences of taking you for granted. Sometimes the greatest gift you give your family is letting them discover exactly what your absence feels like. And that Christmas Eve, when the kitchen became empty, they finally realized how empty the house had always been without appreciating the daughter who quietly held it together.